Morbid Metal is a game I've had my eyes on since the demo a couple of months ago, and when I first played it, it got my interest after just a few minutes of playing it, and now at the time of me recording it, it has just recently gone into early access, giving me the chance to talk about the game. So, with that, thank you for clicking on this video to begin with, and I hope that you enjoy my little overview of Morbid Metal's early access. To start, Morbid Metal is a third-person hack-and-slash roguelike action game with an emphasis on performance and combat, like Devil May Cry, for example. This game is made by a developer known as Screen Juice, but is published by Ubisoft, which would explain why it's an actual fun game with a unique premise. And speaking of premise, one of the main aspects of this game is the character system, as you have the ability to switch between, I believe, 3 different characters, but will later in the future be 4 at any point throughout a run. There is Flux, a swift duelist with an emphasis for burst single target damage, Eku, the slow, heavy hitter that specializes in enemy clearing, as most of his attacks and abilities revolve around dealing with more than one enemy at a time. Then Vecta, a range disruptor that uses a combination of abilities that help with crowd control. Each character has 3 abilities, a special ability that slowly builds up the better you do in a fight, and 2 normal abilities that are on a normal cooldown system. However, the cooldowns continue even if you are not currently using the character, so this creates a gameplay loop of constantly switching between characters, intertwining your moves in order to deal with a group of enemies as efficiently and quickly as you can. And while skill is an important part of this game, as the better you do, the higher your rating will go, there are also the roguelike aspects of the game and the upgrade systems. For temporary upgrades that you can get throughout a run, there are character routines, system routines, corporea, protocols, and devil's bargains. Now on paper that does sound like it can be a bit much, but trust me, it's not that much, and if my goldfish brain can remember these things, then you should be fine, because I can't even remember what I eat like 2 days after for dinner, so if I can remember something, you're probably fine. Regardless, to actually explain these things, protocols are just character abilities, as you get the chance to switch them out as you progress through a run, having different abilities as well as having levels to those abilities that improve their general performance. Next are character routines, a set number of upgrades that are specific to a character, with each character having a set limit number of upgrades. These tend to lean into the specific characteristics of each character, like giving Flux a guaranteed crit if she uses a certain ability to hit an enemy first, or Eku getting hyper armor, giving him damage reduction and stopping him from being interrupted during his abilities. Then there are system routines, a set of buffs that also have a set limit like the previous routines as I just said, but these are more general buffs that apply to all 3 characters regardless of which one you are currently using. These can range from a drone that flies around you periodically shooting enemies, to a shield that protects you from one hit, and even forms of damage over time. For corpora, these are normally small percentage buffs like higher crit chance, but they can also be quality of life stuff, like in a run you can get health whenever you go between zones, or having a larger dodge window to avoid attacks. And finally, there are devil's bargains, strong buffs that come at the cost of giving your enemies a notable buff as well. And speaking of enemies, let's talk about the combat and the actual gameplay of the game. As I said earlier, this is a hack-and-slash roguelike, so for the combat side of things, it's pretty fast-paced combat. It has an emphasis on performance due to both the style counter and the fact that the game, at least when it comes to health, can be somewhat unforgiving. It's fairly easy to avoid attacks, as they are very heavily telegraphed and tend to be on the slower side, but in turn, getting hit is fairly punishing, as health regen, at least at the time of me recording this, is pretty limited. So with there being only a few ways of healing, any damage you take has longer term effects until you find means of healing. But as I said earlier, it's fairly easy to avoid and dodge attacks. It only gets rough when you get later into the run, and the more fast-paced combat makes it harder to avoid more attacks that surround you, as there are more enemies the further you get into a run, or perhaps it's just I'm bad at the game, both are equally as likely. And as for the more roguelike elements of the game, a normal run starts in the Sublime Gardens. When you enter an area, a group of enemies will spawn, and once these enemies are dealt with, you will then get a choice of 3 routines that can either be character or system routines. After that, you pick what you want, you'll travel between areas, finding small areas or doors that can lead to a series of rewards, a currency that will aid you in your current run, a currency that helps give you permanent upgrades, and items that heal you, and etc. Then you will find yourself at a boss, face it in its 3 phases, and once it's defeated, you will get another type of resource that gives you 2 different type of upgrades, and you'll be able to go to the next zone. And I suppose with the general explanation out of the way of the games and its mechanics, I'll talk about how I feel about the game and where I think it could go farther in the future. Overall, I do genuinely like this game. It's got a good foundation and I can see it being built up into something really fun. The combat is satisfying and fun, the movement feels pretty decent. I will admit though, sometimes when it comes to movement in the air, it can feel a bit floaty, but otherwise it feels good to me. The enemies are fun to fight as they found an interesting balance in fighting them, because fighting 1 or 2 is very easy due to their relatively slow attacks, so they have the ability to put more of them in a small room without it being too overwhelming, so it can catch you off guard when you target other enemies. And in later zones, the enemies can just be outright more challenging. I do think their designs can be a bit bland, at least for the normal enemies, but that may be more of a design choice, as this is a simulation of sorts to train who or whatever we are to achieve some level of strength in the game. So perhaps there is a more narrative reason to why they tend to look a bit samey, but overall I do like the enemies' designs, they just feel a bit samey as I said before. The routines do add a notable amount of fun to each character and the overall run, along with the other buffs and boons that you can get throughout a run. They aren't really game-changing though, and I think to some that would be boring. Like those that like Risk of Rain and the potential item or series of items that can make you borderline unstoppable if you get lucky enough. I know that some people really do enjoy that type of gameplay loop, while others do like having more of a balance in their roguelikes of skill and item importance. Morbid Metal leans more towards the latter, as items are important but they aren't particularly game-changing like something you would find in Risk of Rain 2 like red items. Overall, these buffs do add to the game and do make it more fun and are important to get through a run, but my point is they are not going to break the game like something you would find in Risk of Rain. The other things that surround the combat are fun as well. The environments can be a bit samey at times, but I do like the type of style that they seem to be going with, and how they create more zones based off of the art style that they have here. Running through each area is a bit slow, but not to the point of feeling tedious, as they have small pathways or areas that can lead to an area of challenges to get buffs, or just to general corners or areas that are a bit out of the way that can give you some small sort of aid like a currency or a little bit of health. So it encourages exploration, but not to the point that you'll be scouring an area to find any sort of support, giving a little bit more time to breathe before the next fight, but not taking up too much time that it becomes boring and monotonous. The atmosphere is decent, but it's not that important, as after the first few runs, you'll start to learn how the game works and really start speedrunning through it, not really taking in the environment as much as you did before. So it is important, but it just doesn't matter the more you play it, at least for me, it didn't. I won't talk too much about the narrative as it's not super present in the game, and what is there I haven't learned enough of, as there are files that you can find throughout the area that I have not found enough of yet to really understand what's going on with the story. From what I can tell, you take control of a unique AI or intelligence of sorts that is put in a simulation that is being tested in order to take on the mantle that is required for whatever future exists outside of the simulation. There are 2 major characters that talk to you regularly. The one doing the testing, who is obsessed with pushing your skills further, wanting to see you become the best that you can be, and a mysterious woman that seemingly wants to help free you, or if nothing else, does seem to have some type of sympathy for being stuck in the simulation that we are in. Again, I am missing a slew of context, so take all of this with a grain of salt, but I am interested in the story and what is in there, and I would like to see where it goes if they add more to it. Now, before I give my final thoughts on the game, I do want to give some feedback. I doubt anyone is going to make it this far into the video, but on the off chance someone does, and on the even offer chance that someone who actually is a part of this game's creation sees this, I would like to point out some things that I would like changed since it is in early access. Now, obviously, the game needs more content. It's an early access that's expected, so it's just simply going to take time for that to happen. But specific things that I would like to see get added to the game would be things akin to Risk of Rain 2 with skins. I think the designs of the characters in this game are actually pretty cool, and I would really like to see what the art team could create with the idea of changeable skins for these same character designs. And I think it would be cool if you got those skins through a challenge of sorts, again akin to Risk of Rain. And speaking of challenges, I think those should just be kind of added in general to the game. And completing them can provide a number of things. Skins, perhaps a resource for a temporary run, or to help with giving permanent buffs, or maybe some of the challenges just outright give you permanent buffs, like perhaps completing a certain hard challenge permanently gives you Kaporas or something of the sort. But in terms of things I would like changed that are already in the game, I do like the challenge rooms. I think that they are a cool idea, but I also think they're a bit underwhelming. Part of the problem, and I could be wrong about this, but I think part of the problem is that the buffs that you get from the challenge room take up a routine slot. So it's a buff that in my opinion is somewhat underwhelming that comes at the cost of a routine slot. So I think it should be a permanent buff that is applied without taking up a slot. And if it does take up a slot, I think that they should give it a notable buff to make it more worth it. Next are more buggy problems. Like sometimes the enemies just stop working, having troubles getting to you and just outright walking in circles. The second phase of the first boss fight has a problem when he's shooting at you from higher up, because you can just kind of sit under him like this, making it completely irrelevant, so maybe rework that. Sometimes the movement is a bit janky, even stopping me from moving at times. Granted, this could be my controller bugging out, but if it is the game, you should probably fix that as well. But problems aside, this game is fun, and I think it has a good amount of potential behind it. I normally don't like roguelikes, as for me the sense of progression that comes from going through a game and getting better as you invest more time into a game is one of the most satisfying things that comes from playing a game for me. So roguelikes being not that, as the point of a roguelike is that you have runs, and when you lose or die in that run, you start from zero. That is the point. Now, I will say there are a good number of roguelikes that do make an effort to give you a type of permanent upgrade system to help give yourself a bump in strength. Regardless of how well you are doing throughout a run, you will have some sort of buff compared to the last run. So I like that, and that definitely helps me get through certain roguelikes. But because of all of this, there are only a select few that I've ever really tried, let alone put more than 10 hours into. So I'm not particularly experienced with roguelikes and what makes a good or a bad roguelike. So I'm saying all of this to say take my opinion on this with a grain of salt, because I really don't know what a good roguelike looks like and a bad roguelike looks like. Regardless, I do think this is really fun, and it could be even better depending on what they add to the game over these next months to years. The gameplay is fun and satisfying, the world and its story have me intrigued, the art design is fairly interesting, and the music is surprisingly good to me. This game is simply just fun, and I really want to see where it goes. So to those that are making this, best of luck to you, as I will be keeping my eyes on this game and where it goes in both the near and the far future. But thank you for taking the time to make this game, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know it wasn't very good, so thank you for clicking on it to begin with, let alone going all the way through it to hear me say this to you. I hope you have a good day or a good night, and I hope whatever happens in your life goes right. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Whatever it'll be and whatever it comes out, because I really don't know for either. But regardless, thank you, and maybe see you in the next one.